Like, I'm sitting here a little bit dumbfounded. I can't believe that we're actually filming our last video about walking the Camino.
It can't be possible.
I know. This has been 39 days of walking from St. John Pied Port to Santiago, and oh my gosh, what an amazing adventure it has been.
Amazing.
But I'm getting ahead of myself. David, take it away.
Okay, so first we're going to talk about our walk from Arzúa to Santiago de Compostela, which happens to be a double stage.
It was
So
long.
it was a very, very long day. The total kilometers for that stage are 38 kilometers. We actually went a little further because we stayed in a hostel that was about 2 kilometers before Arzúa. We did it in 56,750 steps.
That has to be the record for the most steps we've gotten in a day ever.
Ever. Yeah, easily. And then it took us 10 hours and 10 minutes. So we decided to do this because we had some friends who we actually had never met before, but they were always just a step ahead of us the entire Camino, and we wanted to meet them, and they were leaving the next day. So if we didn't do a double stage, we wouldn't have been able to meet them. Christine and Jayon, it was fantastic meeting you.
Yes, it was definitely worth the pain. We'll get to the pain in a minute.
So this walk was hard for us, but normally if you were to break this into 2 parts, I don't think it would have been that hard, relatively. No. They were pretty flat sections, lots of towns. In fact, there were so many towns along the way. Usually I talk about where to stop, which towns. There were lots of them.
Yeah.
Lots of opportunities, lots of cafes. You won't have a problem stopping wherever you want to. Now, normally what people do is they walk to the town of O Pedruzo, and that is at 19.2 kilometers. We chose to keep going, but once you get to O Pedruzo, there is an alternate route. It really takes off like 1 kilometer, just in case you are looking for that.
And I will say, because we took the alternate route, we missed the town completely. We
would have liked to see
We
it.
were going to stop there for lunch and get food, but we found ourselves past the town, and it was like, oops, so then we had to wait until after that.
Yeah. So what we did do is we stopped 3 kilometers later at a place called Bar Kilometer 15, or Bar Kilometer 15, because it is 15 kilometers to the end of the Camino. They had pizzas and beer, and it was a nice meal, and we needed the stop at that point.
Yes.
So it was really nice to take a rest there. The rest of the day we ate groceries, and we can put prices of that down somewhere, wherever we would put those.
Yes.
Okay. So after lunch, we walked and walked and walked, gaining more and more blisters. And as you get closer to the city, just a couple kilometers out, you're going to come to a place called Monte de Gozo, which is where you're going to get your first views of Santiago. And if you go to the right place, there are some statues and there are some views where you can actually see the cathedral way off in the distance. If you're not walking a long distance like we did, you might want to try. We skipped that because
It adds on, I think it was like a kilometer and a half.
and we weren't ready to do that.
Like, this was a really difficult day for me. Blister-wise, I had been doing really good up until this, and really I did fine past O Pedruzo. I think it was well past that, but by the time we stopped for lunch, I was feeling it. By the time we got just outside of Santiago, I really should have stopped, but we were so close, you can't stop there. So we just had to push through, and it was a challenge for blisters that day. Next time we do this, I would really like to stop at this overlook. I think it's supposed to be amazing. We just couldn't do it on this day.
Not this day. You're going to get into Santiago. I will say it's very odd that of all places, Santiago is not well marked. It's not as easy to find the arrows once you get into the city. So this is a time you're really going to want to get out your Camino Ninja or other hiking app and make sure you're staying on the route. It's really not that difficult. You're just heading into town, but just in case, take a look at your app.
We did not want to take a single
Extra
step going one block out of the way, so we were following it very carefully.
We also considered going straight to our hotel and going to the cathedral the next day, but when we got into town, we just couldn't do it. We had to see that cathedral.
We were just too excited.
So there's a whole bunch we're going to talk about in a minute about arriving and all of that. But I will say we did end up staying at the Loop Inn. We stayed there for 3 nights before we flew out of town. We had booked 2 nights at $66 each. And then because we skipped part of the Camino, we got there a day early.
Because we skipped staying in Opedruzo, because we had pre-booked our hotels from Sarria all the way to the end. So when we decided to do that double stage, we had to pick up another night, and the Loop Inn was sold out. Or the room class that we had pre-booked was sold out, so we had to upgrade. And so then
that cost $90.
Yes.
For the night. And I would say we really liked the Loop Inn.
Yeah.
It was pretty basic as far as the rooms were, but the facility overall was fantastic. They had a great breakfast, which we got because we paid extra for that first night.
The one night we got breakfast included. It was good.
But they have a massive kitchen area upstairs. The kitchen
is amazing. It's up on the top with windows,
vaulted ceilings,
all of these different kitchen stations, so multiple people could cook there at once, with refrigerators that you can, mark and leave your stuff there. We never saw people really using it. There was other people around, but I don't know.
And actually, we went up there to just use our computers because it was a nice place to sit. I recommend that place. It was really nice.
The other reason we ended up at Loop Inn is because we had sent ahead some bags that we didn't want to carry with us on the Camino from St. John Piedmont. And the Loop Inn is where they get sent. You don't have to stay there. You could we could have collected our bags and gone somewhere else, but we just decided to stay there because that's where they were. That process went very easy. When we got there, we gave them the little tag they gave us. They went back and brought our bags right out. Very easy process.
We ate at groceries mostly, but we did go out to restaurants with friends a few times to say goodbye to some friends.
Yes.
So this is normally where we do our shout out to someone.
Oh, yes.
And today we're going to do a different kind of shout out. We met someone a month later after the Camino who...
I know, we're breaking the mystery here because we are filming this much later after we finished, but...
we were having medical checkups in Kuala Lumpur. And while we were in the waiting room, a woman came up to us and she said, "Do you have a YouTube channel?" We're like, yes. So this is the first time ever we've been recognized. So that was kind of fun. She said that her husband was currently walking the Camino, was watching all of our videos and was sending those videos to her to also watch. And so we'd like to give a shout out to her. We didn't get her name because we got called into the office just as this was all happening. And a shout out to her and her husband. He's probably done by now. We hope you had a great Camino.
That was really fun. So if you've been following along, we shot a different video every single day that we've been walking the Camino to cover every single stage and all of the things that, happen or questions that pilgrims have, or at least that we had before we were walking. If you are curious at all, I will put the playlist at the end of this video so you can watch all of the videos and see everything that we got up to from Paris all the way to Santiago. It's been quite the ride.
Quite the ride.
But let's talk a little bit more about getting into Santiago, because I don't want to gloss over. It's a lot of conflicting emotions,
a lot,
I think. But the first one was excitement, because we were so tired and worn down and we're getting there. So the first thing you get to is the sign. You've seen so many people pose with this sign, and then suddenly there it is, Santiago de Compostela, and you're taking your selfies, but you still a little ways to walk after that.
Still, I think more than a kilometer, at least.
That's kind of an emotional release, and then you get into the actual old town part with the beautiful tall buildings. You're kind of winding your way through.
Stunning old town, just beautiful buildings and churches everywhere.
And it's crowded.
Really
There's
beautiful.
so many people. I mean, obviously pilgrims, but people who have finished the Camino and people who live there and other just tourists. Lots of tourists, it seemed like. So it's crowded, but you've got your packs on and everybody knows where you're headed. And then you hear the bagpipes. And that's really cool.
If you're lucky, you'll get the bagpipes. They're not always there, but I think there are quite a few bagpipe players who take turns in that.
We saw at least 2 different people on different days playing. So, but when you hear that, you just this is the moment that you've been waiting for. And you walk past these beautiful churches, and then there's the tunnel, and you see the bagpipes.
You go through the tunnel, and it opens up onto the square where the front of the cathedral is. And it's a massive square surrounded by beautiful buildings. And you're entering from where the front of the cathedral is. So you have to actually walk in and turn around to actually get the whole effect of the cathedral. And it really does take your breath away, especially after a month plus of emotions have been building up.
Yes. And by this point, I mean, my foot was hurting really bad. I was exhausted. But getting there was, I don't know, it turned out to be much more emotional than I thought it was going to be.
You just feel it in your whole being.
It is a moment to cherish and remember. We did talk to some people who he was like, if you have to, stop your Camino early, don't go to Santiago until you're ready to be done. Like, save that
first time.
So that if you have to go home early, go home from wherever you are, because that first time you walk in is going to mean something. And I think he was absolutely right.
Yeah. When you get to the square, plan some time there. Enjoy the square. Enjoy watching the people. Enjoy watching other people arrive and watch them have their moment.
Because we were there late. Like, it was 4:30, 5 o'clock.
Because we had walked 2 stages. It took us a long time.
And so we were there much later than usual, and people were coming in after us, and everybody's excited and, giving each other applause.
And there's big groups that come in singing, and it's just an atmosphere that is so great to take in. There's just so much happening.
Yes. Give yourself time to just enjoy it. The next thing you're going to probably think about is getting your Compostela. We were so tired. We just went directly to our hotel and rested that night. And then we came back the next day to go to the Pilgrim office and get our Compostela. So a couple things that you're going to want to know is there is an online form that you can fill out. I don't think it's mandatory, but it makes everything much easier and quicker once you get there.
A lot.
So we showed up at the office, I don't remember, I think it was like 10 o'clock in the morning. So it wasn't busy. And so we had gone to this form, and I'll put a link to it down in the description below the video in case you are looking for it. And it's just your basic, you're filling in your name and your birth date and that kind of stuff. And then it gives you a QR code. And so when you arrive to the Pilgrim office, which isn't that far away from the square, they scan that QR code and it just puts you in line, and then you don't have to fill in all that stuff when you're there.
No.
I'm guessing when we got there, there was really no wait. We walked right in.
Straight up to the window.
But if there was a wait, I think having that done beforehand is going to save you a lot of time.
Yeah. And I actually think they were having some people go to the side to fill that out on their phone.
One thing to note is that if you are hiking, as a couple or in a group, everybody needs to fill out their own form and get that QR code. You get called up individually. It's not a group activity at that point. They will process each person individually. So when you're filling out that form, everybody needs to fill one out.
Yeah. So when you finally wait in line, you get up to the window, the people working there are the best. The nicest volunteers you could imagine. They are so welcoming. They care about your experience that you've just had. It's really fun to get in there and talk to someone who knows what's going on.
So this is where they'll fill out your Compostela with your full name. They also give you the option to get a distance certificate. We didn't decide to do that, but I think it's €3 to pay for the distance certificate. The Compostela itself is free.
We had heard beforehand that unless you fill out the form saying you did the walk for religious purposes, you would not get an actual Compostela. You would get another certificate of completion. But while we were there, everyone was getting the Compostelas. I don't know if that changes day to day, but that's what happened with our experience.
I do get the feeling that there is some variation depending on the day that you're there. People talk about needing to get, 1 stamp or 2 stamps the last 100 kilometers. Officially, the rules are that you need to get 2 stamps after you hit that last 100 kilometers. So whether you are a rule follower or not to the letter of the law, we are. So I would suggest getting your 2 stamps. But in our practical experience, no one actually really looked at it that closely.
Also take note, the Compostela is all in Latin. And mine came and it said Davidum McMullen. And it was like, what a weird
Misspelling.
typo. And then we realized if your name can be translated into Latin, they will do that on the Compostela also.
I put down Rob Hillman, and apparently Rob does not translate into Latin.
Maybe if you'd put Robert.
So, yeah, I think Robert might have, but that's why we were confused at first.
Another note about the office is that there are other activities that happen there. There is a room upstairs in which they have a daily Pilgrim's Mass at 10:30, and this is the only Pilgrim's Mass in English. If you go to the cathedral, it will be in Spanish. Also in that same meeting room, I think they have meetups where you can just get together with other pilgrims and talk about your experiences. You can look all of that up online. Now, the traditional goal of the Camino was to arrive at the cathedral and see the tomb of St. James. To get into the cathedral, you don't actually enter through the front. You'll go around to the right side and you'll enter
on the side.
On the side. Now, once you get inside, if you want to see the tomb of St. James, go to the far side of the altar, and there is a pathway that goes down underneath the altar. There there'll probably be a line. You'll wait with everyone else, and you can pay your respects to the tomb. It's a beautiful silver box that's down underneath there. After that, the path will lead you back up and to the top of the altar. And at the top of the altar, there is a statue of St. James there. And this is something people also pay respect to. There are signs saying to be respectful of the statue. Generally, people just put their hands on it.
There was an attendant there who's kind of monitoring everything. But basically, you just can walk up and pay your respects and then back down the other side. The cathedral itself is beautiful and worth spending a little time just kind of walking around and enjoying.
They have 4 Pilgrim's Masses a day, all in Spanish. The first is at 7:30 a.m., 9:30 a.m., noon, and then one in the evening at 7:30 p.m.
Now, this is where it pays to kind of make connections along the way, is that about 2 or 3 days before we arrived in Santiago, we started hearing rumors about a service where they were going to do the Botafumeiro. So that's kind of one of those things. Everybody wants to see it, but they don't do it all the time. And it's not published when they're going to do it and when they're not.
Yeah, there are actually 12 holy days that they will swing the Botafumeiro. And those are posted on the cathedral's website.
Other than that, if individuals or groups want to experience that, they have to pay for it. But it's like 400 or 500 euros because they have to bring in the specialized guys. It's like a group of them who swing it. And so it doesn't happen every time. And so we started hearing rumors about a family that was going to pay for it, and it was scheduled the day after we arrived. And so we went to that one. It was just a rumor. It was gossip. We had no idea if it was going to actually happen. And then it did.
It did.
And so we were very excited and felt very blessed that we were able to have that experience, such an iconic experience in an iconic place. We did talk to some other friends who arrived the day after, and actually I think everyone we talked to was able to see it. So it's not like it's super rare necessarily. It's just you can't predict it. So if you really want to see it, ask around.
Definitely ask around.
Because it's an experience worth seeing. So David, would you hike the Camino again?
In a second. I would do it again. I might do it differently for sure.
Yeah, we've learned some things.
I would take my time. I would plan more time so that I could spend more time in some of the towns, do more activities in some of the cities. You come across so many beautiful places that at times you feel like you're just going to bed and leaving.
Yes, and that's literally what I did most of the time. Because I was too hurt to go wander around the town. So I was resting in the evenings and didn't really get to see anything. I think that was really the way we planned this on purpose, though, is that we didn't make a lot of plans. We weren't Googling, what's the things you have to do in every town and what are all the interesting little, Atlas Obscura things that you want to see.
Which there are some.
Yeah,
there are quite a few.
But we just wanted to come and have the experience and let it be whatever it was going to be and not be worried about missing out or not seeing something. And so that meant we did miss out on some things, and there were some things we didn't see. And I really want to do it again. And I want to do this exact route again. I want to do the Frances. I really liked it because there was people around and there's a lot of infrastructure, and it just makes everything really easy in a way that makes me want to do it again.
And speaking of there always being people around, I think that was the thing that I loved the most.
Yeah.
Was the people you meet along the way. Some of them you just walk with for 20 minutes, and that's your whole experience with them. Other people you run into time after time after time, and they become very close and important to you.
Hi, Diane and Elvia. I would absolutely do the walk again. I would do other routes, but I think I would really want to do the Frances again. Also because we, missed about 50 kilometers over the Meseta because I just got injured so badly. I want to come back and be able to do that piece of it just so I can be official of having walked the entire way. But I would start in St. John Pied-de-Port or earlier than that in a heartbeat. We have been to over 90 countries between us, and I would say this is maybe my favorite thing I have ever done. It was just fulfilling in every way to me.
So, Rob, is this our last video?
No, this is not our last video. This is the end of our walking experience, but we do have 2 more videos planned. So stick around. We're going to do one where we review all our gear. At the very beginning, we talked about what the gear was that we brought with us. And now we're going to shoot a video talking about what we brought that worked, what we brought that we didn't ever use. There were a few things that I packed the entire way and never used. Also, I want to shoot a video. We talked about our costs as we've gone along. Every video talks about how much we spent on accommodation, how much we spent on food for that day. But I want to do another video that just kind of wraps it all up so you can see exactly how much we spent for the entire Camino, and let that be a rough guide to help you figure out how much money you need to save before you go on your own Camino. So those 2 videos are coming up. We will have those out shortly. This is a great experience and you are going to love it. And like I said before, we shot a video every day that we walked the Camino, including all of our practical information, as well as just answering those questions that we had as pilgrims. So I will link to that playlist right over here. You can go back and get all of your Camino questions answered. Today.